Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Jennifer Reynolds, and I'm the President and CEO of Toronto Finance International. And TFI, as we call it, is the organization that launched Aspire. And TFI works with both government and the financial services sector. We're a public-private partnership. And what we do is we promote the financial sector, the Canadian financial sector globally, and the Toronto Financial Centre. And then domestically, we focus on issues which go to the growth and competitiveness of the financial sector. So just to name a couple, innovation, making sure we're the most innovative ecosystem around sustainable finance, making sure that we're moving towards a lower carbon economy, and how do we finance that? And of course, talent. Talent is critical to our industry. And so we have many initiatives to make sure that we have the best talent, from attracting talent from outside of our country to Canada, to, of course, focusing on university students and postgraduate students, and trying to make sure that they're aware of all the fantastic opportunities that we have here in the sector. And so Aspire is obviously a very important part of what we do with postgraduate students. And the program really is trying to simultaneously help students transition into careers, and then also obviously to attract them to the financial sector, and to make sure we've got the next generation of fantastic talent to work in the sector. And we do that in a few different ways. Number one, we have resources online and in presentations for students to hone their skills, to learn more, to be ready for work opportunities. We also create co-op opportunities through all the employers who are involved in the program, and you're going to hear from a few today, of course. And then finally, we have many events for students where we provide networking opportunities for all of you to come and to meet employers and to learn more about the industry as well. So today, what we're trying to do today is provide you with the information that you need about opportunities in the industry. So Uncovering Opportunity, the path from degree to cool new job is the title for today's webinar. So thrilled to be here with all of you today and our great guests to have some great conversations about what kind of careers we have, and what do career paths really look like, because we often think that, you know, we've got to know in university exactly what we're going to do, and we have it all mapped out. But for most people, it doesn't really happen that way. We end up in very different places than we think when we're in our late teens or early 20s or even late 20s sometimes. So it'll be great to hear from our guests today to understand what their path was to financial services. And so we're going to hear about a bunch of different really innovative areas and things in the industry that are happening today, things like AI, cybersecurity, cryptocurrency, the Internet of Things. There's lots of innovation going on in the industry, and often we don't think of that when we think of financial services, but it's a very innovative place. The pace of change is dramatic in the industry right now, and our guests today are going to be able to talk to you about that. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Carla Badger-Brown, the director of the Aspire program, and she's going to take it from here. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. It's a real pleasure to be able to host this webinar today for so many of you. As Jennifer mentioned, we're really pleased to be able to offer this webinar, introduce you to 5 speakers with really cool jobs in innovative fields. And before we get started, I'd quickly like to introduce our TFI talent team. So they're the ones who have managed to pull this together today, and they're working behind the scenes to make sure this goes off without a hitch. So let me introduce them all. First off, we have Sasha D'Souza. She's our Senior Vice President of Talent Initiatives. We have Julie Brisky, our Senior Director of Talent Initiatives. Myself, the Director of our Aspire program. Alessia Paoletti, she's our Program Manager for the Aspire program, and really the person who spearheaded today's webinar. And then finally, we have Janetta Lutich. She's our latest Aspire intern, who's a post-secondary student like many of you who are on the call today. She's a math and finance student from McMaster University and currently in her first co-op placement. Well, we would have loved for you to meet our team and all of our speakers today in person. Unfortunately, our current work from home and school from home environment has not allowed us to do that. And so we're having to do it through a webinar. but that doesn't mean that we don't want it to be interactive. And so we really encourage you to use all of the features that we have available in our Zoom platform today. So first off, I'd like to make sure that you can see our screen as well as our speakers in the best possible way. So what we suggest is that you go up to the upper right-hand corner of your screen and click the speaker view. That way you'll be able to see the slides and our speakers at the same time. Now, there are other few things we want to enable. First off, we have 5 panelists and close to 500 registrants today. We're very pleased with the response, but we want to ensure that there aren't a number of interruptions. And so we've actually muted all attendees. But we still want you to contribute to the conversation. So if you haven't done so yet, I want you to go down to the bottom of your screen where there's a black control panel and find the Q&A button. Open that up, and that's actually a panel where you can submit your questions throughout the webinar whenever you have them, and we'll respond to as many as we can later in the Q&A session. We'll also be asking some polling questions throughout today's webinar. They'll pop up right in the middle of your screen, and we invite you to answer them throughout. Okay, moving right along, let's get our 5 speakers set up. So we have 5 amazing speakers who are each going to speak for 7 minutes to tell us about their career journeys. This means it's going to be fast and engaging. As I mentioned, feel free to enter your questions as we go, and we'll answer your questions at the end. First up is Alison Gibbons from RBC, who works in talent strategy to ensure that RBC is the best workplace for technology professionals to build exceptional technology. Before I turn the mic over to Alison to tell us about her cool job, I'd like you to take a guess at how Alison started her career. Alessia, can you launch our first poll? Okay, here it is. Alison's job title is Senior Director, Digital and Tech Talent Strategy at RBC. What do you think she studied in school? Philosophy and criminology, systems design engineering, anthropology, business administration and marketing, or digital media? All right, we have about half of you who voted. Let's let it run for a little longer. Okay, so close. First is business administration and marketing, and second up is systems design engineering. Very interesting. Well, let's see if you're right. Alison, let's hear about your career journey and how you support technology at RBC. Over to you.
Thanks, Carla. Hi, everyone. I'm speaking to you from my house in my youngest son's bedroom. So bear with us all as we make the best of a challenging situation. If you said systems design engineering, you are not right, but that's what I wish I had taken. In fact, I did take a BBA, so business admin, with a focus on marketing. I did a co-op, which was a lot of marketing internships. And I subsequently got my MBA from Queen's. So my undergrad from Laurier, my master's from Queen's. My career journey has been really varied, from industries to things I've been doing, but there are a couple of common threads in my career. The 3 common threads that I'd like you to take away today is, the first is, do take smart risks in your career. The second is, I've always been curious and I've always been learning. And the third one is that I've leveraged my network to build out my career. So after I graduated from Laurier, I went into management consulting. And that's a field where, as a business analyst in management consulting, I was the expert of nothing. I was expected to go into these multi-million-dollar corporations and help the other consultants solve big strategic problems for their clients. So that was a case where I needed to learn very, very quickly whatever thing we were doing. And after that, I decided that I wanted to focus more on marketing. So I went out to Rogers, the telecom company, where I was hired in direct marketing. And when you say direct marketing these days, usually we mean websites, SEO, SEM, ads, maybe email marketing, text message marketing, Instagram, social, all the rest of it. But back in the day, the kind of direct marketing we did was telemarketing. So yes, that's when the folks called you and said, "Oh, you're with Bell, you should transfer to Rogers." We did direct mail, so that's you got you know, a piece of mail, and it offered you great things. And we also used something called bill messaging, and the big tech in the day was so that the bill messaging, we could have variable bill messaging, leveraging data. And the common theme there was that I really enjoyed was the segmentation, figuring out who should get what offers, and also doing some predictive analytics on who we thought might be likely to leave us and who we should give some extra things to. So I also, while I was at Rogers, did a call center implementation where we were doing tech for the call center, so marketing within the call center. And that was really interesting, building products. So after Rogers, I went to a digital agency where I was a digital strategist. And this was about 10 years ago. So a lot of our clients were figuring out things like, should they have a storefront in Second Life, which was one of the early communities. One of the really fun clients that I had was the National Basketball Association, the NBA, where they were trying to figure out how they could use their data as well as their digital assets to make money and to further engage the fans. So that was a really fun 6 months in New York, working with the NBA and catching some basketball games. After that, I've gone to a number of other places. I've done online gaming. I've been in the healthcare sector. I've been in the software development space. And so all of those things, I had to take a bit of a risk to go into a new industry and adapt what I learned in my past jobs to the job I was in. I took probably the biggest risk in my career when I did a startup. The startup was called Simplify Analytics, and we used predictive analytics to tell you what not to buy. It was an idea a little bit ahead of its time. It's actually would be a good one to do right now when people are buying less, and maybe help them decide what not to buy. But that was a really good example of me jumping into the tech and building products for people. So after that, I did go to a software development shop, and then I got a call from a colleague from back in Rogers days. And she said, "Allison, we know you're in startups and tech and things like that and do strategy. We'd like you to come to RBC." And I said, "Oh, I don't know about finance and big company. That I already did that." But she said, "Come anyways, and if you don't like it, you can quit. You know, it's a 3-month trial period for both you and me, and no hard feelings if you don't like it after 3 months." But the really great thing was at RBC, I have really bright colleagues. I have more autonomy in my job at RBC than I did in anywhere else. And we're also working on the latest tech. We're doing things like world-leading artificial intelligence, machine learning. We have both a postgraduate lab, Borealis, that works on cutting-edge AI. But we also have a very large team of data and analytics that's using the big data that we have to solve all kinds of problems. We have multi-layered cybersecurity, also using AI. And we are investigating and launching products in things like blockchain, or using blockchain, and we have a really cool voice lab. So people who are figuring out how to use Amazon Alexa, Siri, and Google Home to help you with your finance needs. And in RBC, I imagine that I'm going to pivot to probably out of the sort of strategy side, and I'm looking to go into more of the software side and leading products, because I really like how we really put the consumers at the center of our products and do a lot of design thinking. And so there's lots of learning opportunities at RBC, whether it's taking courses, doing going external or internal courses, or going to our twice yearly large tech conference that we host. So that's a little bit about me. So my 3 recommendations are, take some big risks and don't be worried about going into different jobs or doing something that you aren't entirely sure what you're doing. Work with smart people and, keep in touch with them, because you might 15 years later, they might have a great job for you. And the final thing is always be curious and always be learning. So I'm going to hand it back to Carla, who will introduce our next speaker. And thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Allison. I appreciate it. And I loved some of your stories. I think one of the questions that students always ask when they're thinking about going to work for a large financial institution, they'll say, oh, but I'm not going to have much autonomy. It's a big organization. Everybody's going to be looking over my shoulder and directing me. And I've heard that from many people that it's actually quite the opposite. All right, we are trucking along. We're actually a bit ahead of schedule, so we will have lots of time for our next speaker. I'm going to just share my screen to remind us of who's up next. So we have up next Andrew Schneider. And so when I was getting prepared and ready to host this session, one of the things I got to do was to read bios from all participants. And Andrew's was really interesting, particularly his extracurricular passions. So Andrew said he liked running, reading, video games, and very apropos of today's climate, following public health guidelines to curb the spread of infectious disease. Well, thank you, Andrew, for doing your part and for being here today to share your professional story. Andrew Schneider joined TD Securities in 2019, where he works on a variety of projects that leverage analytics and machine learning to improve processes at TD. I think it's time to launch poll number 2. As a data science and analytics associate, what do you think Andrew studied in his undergraduate program? All right, we've got some responses coming in. Oh, a lot are saying computer science. All right. And the results are in. 54% think Andrew studied computer science in his undergraduate degree. I'm going to turn it over to Andrew to share his story, and we'll see if you're right. Andrew, over to you.
Thank you, Carla. I hope everyone can hear me well. So it's very interesting that people think I study computer science. Obviously, that would be very relevant, but similar to Allison, I choose, but as it turns out, it is not what I chose. So my education was pretty interesting. The short answer to that question is I studied business administration, but my route through that was not exactly linear. Essentially, in first year of university, I was in engineering, and as with most universities, first year engineering is like a general engineering course load. You're not specialized yet. In second year, I specialized in software engineering, and then in third year, I moved over to business administration, did that in third year, and then halfway through fourth year, I actually started a master's program. So I did a master's program and then finished my undergrad, and in my fifth year, I guess you could say, I finished my master's program, which was in science in business analytics. So I ended up having this very blended education that was kind of half technological and then half on the business side. And for a long time, I had a little bit of insecurity about this, partially because I thought that most companies, when they were looking to hire somebody, would be looking for a specialist, right? So if you were looking to hire for a technology role, you were going to only care about someone's technology skills. If you're hiring for some sort of business role, you might only care about someone's financial knowledge or financial prowess. But as it turns out, in the job that I have now, this kind of blended mix of my background has been really helpful to me. Because as you'll find with most technology projects, it's also really imperative to have a good business understanding of what you're doing. especially if you're going to participate in the full life cycle of a project. You don't usually get to the technical work into weeks or maybe months into the project because you have to spend so much time establishing exactly what the business context is, what metrics you're going to use to measure the success of the project, and then making sure you just have good lines of communication with all of the business partners that you're engaging with. So that's the background on my education. In terms of working in financial services, interestingly enough, if you'd asked me in about my 4th year of my education, I would have told you that I had no expectation of going to work in financial services at all. I was really kind of enamored with the idea of working for a smaller company or a startup. I also like the idea of consulting that gives a really kind of diverse view of different industries. But while I was in my master's program, I did an internship or a co-op at Scotiabank, specifically in fraud analytics. So I was only there for 4 months, but me and a coworker, essentially the two of us as this tiny little team, we were tasked with using analytics, machine learning in some way to try and better detect check fraud. Specifically check fraud because checks are now this kind of archaic piece of technology and they are sort of easy to take advantage of. So a lot of fraud today actually happens through checks. So my experience at Scotiabank was really interesting because, as Allison mentioned, I had a lot more autonomy over my work than I expected. I had a lot more exposure to different people and areas around the bank. And I also learned that, and this is what I'm continuing to learn, I'm relatively new in my career, but almost any work can be compelling and interesting as long as you have interesting people to do with it. And in terms of my priorities of work that I do now and work that I would look to in the future, that's definitely a piece of advice that I would give is don't undervalue the importance of having a good relationship with a manager and then also good relationships with the people you're working with on your team. I think it's kind of similar to schoolwork, right? You can go to a very prestigious university or a school, but at the end of the day, your experience is mostly going to come down to the professor teaching you a course and the people that you have to do projects with and see on a regular basis. So the current role that I have now is at TD, and I work as a data science and analytics associate. So TD has a lot of associate programs, and maybe I'll take a second to plug them now. They have some more technological ones, so they specifically have ones aimed at developers, and then they have ones for business intelligence. So specifically, I work in data science and analytics. And with that, I work on a team under TD Securities called the machine learning team, which is in technology solutions. And we essentially, as a team, work as internal consultants at the bank. So we don't just service securities, we work with a lot of areas of the banks. And essentially our mandate is to use machine learning analytical techniques to upgrade processes that need it. So I can give a couple of examples. One of the cool projects that we have worked on is implementing an algorithm to help automatically detect insider trading, right? This is an implementation of big data because up until this point, most attempts to find insider trading were very manual, right? And when you have this giant breadth of data, you can use machine learning techniques to better detect that and give a more holistic view of what's going on with insiders and in the market in general. So I'd say what's cool about the field that I work in is in finance, and when you work at a bank, you have access to data. The depth and breadth of data that's available is just unmatched, right? When you think about spending behaviors or financial institutions, the type of data that you have access to really gives you massive insight into a person's life. Now with that comes a lot of power, obviously, and banks are very heavily regulated because of that. But it also leads to super interesting and compelling work that can really improve the quality of somebody's experience with a bank, and since that's related to their finances, the sort of quality of their life as well. I don't have a lot of time left, so I'll get onto sort of my career advice. I'm relatively young in my career, and one of the things I already mentioned earlier is I think a lot of people, when they're looking, especially for their first job I experienced, really undervalue the role of the specific people, managers, and teammates that they're going to be working with on a team. So I'd say if you have the opportunity to meet the people you're going to work with at a new job, I think that that is super valuable. And I would also say, don't undervalue your specific and unique skill set. Again, I had some insecurity when I was looking for my first job about my blended skill set, because I thought I'd either be compared to super technologically, people, or people who had studied pure business. But you can find a niche value for your skill set, no matter where you're coming from or what that is. And then finally, the value of networking, right? So staying in contact with people that you make strong connections with at school, all that can go a really long way in finding quality opportunities, not just now, but also in the future. So I hope that gave you some insight into sort of my profession and my career, working in finance and where I come from. And I will pass it back to Carla to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting, Andrew. And again, I think you highlighted in your first discussion this question that a lot of students ask me, which is, oh, I'm a business student. Should I be getting some tech experience? Because they find that there are so many technology students out there who now are getting business degrees. So I think from what I've heard from many, many people is that it doesn't hurt to if you're a tech student, to know a little bit about business, and if you're a tech student, the other way around, if you're a business student, to take a couple of courses in some latest technologies or programming or data analytics, just to try to stay ahead of the skills of the future. All right, I'm going to share my screen again and introduce you to our third speaker. So next up is Ann Dimkin. Ann has built a 23+ year career in information security. She's been working at Sun Life since November of 2018 as the Director of Identity and Access Management, and she reports directly to the Chief Information Officer, Abby Rahman. With this background, Alessia, let's launch our next poll. What do you think Ann studied in school? Information technology security, English literature, human resources, data management, or marketing? The results are coming in. Everyone's a little unsure what Ann might have studied. She's obviously got a complex role, and they're still trying to make up their minds. Okay, let's end the poll, Alessia. So close one, but it looks like most think that Ann studied information technology security. Well, let's listen to Ann's story and we'll find out if you're correct. Ann, welcome.
Thank you, Carla. So whoever guessed marketing, you are correct. So just to introduce myself, my name is Ann Dimkin and I am the Director of Identity and Access Management at Sun Life. Firstly, I would like to thank Team Aspire for inviting me to speak today. I'm honored to have the opportunity, as I am an advocate for empowering younger generations to pursue careers in information security. So this forum does excite me. When I was much younger, I was torn between pursuing a career in marketing or police, actually. I studied marketing in college, and soon after I heard of a job at BMO from a friend that worked there. And my mother worked there at the time too, so she may have influenced me a little bit to pursue a career at BMO. It was in cryptographic services, which was the former information security. I applied for the job and I got the job. The job was refurbishing point of sale devices, and it is kind of a funny story. We were in the basement of the data center and we would clean them, clean point of sale equipment with rubbing alcohol and toothbrushes in the basement of the data centers. The money was amazing. The team was awesome and we had so much fun, and we just built so many relationships, and those friendships still build to this day. So my thought process was, let me get my foot in the door for an incredible organization. And then I knew that I was unstoppable if I had a good attitude, if I was hardworking, if I was able to build healthy relationships. And I was hungry to learn, and I knew that I could do anything. And I know that everybody that called into this call can do anything too, because you're here for a reason. So I am also very sociable. I consistently still volunteer. I'm here today speaking, but I used to volunteer for things like staff appreciation events, fundraising, anything to build my own network. I also had great leaders behind me, and I still do today. I'm very lucky that way. One of my managers, who I always looked up to, would advise me that it was very important in the workplace to make sure that once you're in an organization, make sure you move. Because move every 2 years, don't stay in the same role, because if you move within the organization, you're really building that institution knowledge, and that is power. So I did many different roles in my career, from the help desk. Help desk was a great one because you were working with everybody in the organization and every problem came to you. It was stressful. We had to work shift work, but we had a lot of fun. I also worked in field services, serving the ABM machines. That was also a very interesting role. And without going into all my roles, the short of it is that I started my career in information security. I moved outside information security, but my heart was always in cybersecurity. So I'm back here now. It is definitely where my heart is. Cyber is cool. It's forever changing. The role is always evolving, which is exciting. So when I speak to younger students, I tell them that we're the police of the company. When people ask what I do, we're a team of people, and we're here to serve and protect the organization. We make sure that our information is safe. My area of expertise is identity and access management, and that's a framework of policies and technologies used for ensuring that the proper people have the right access to applications and systems. So it is the foundation of security. So when a breach does happen, it's usually because of poor access management. So it really is an important role for the organization. After 23 years plus, I was offered a position doing the same type of role at Sun Life. It was an extremely difficult decision because I was so happy at BMO. But I knew that, you know, in order for my own self-development, it might have been time to take that risk and move. I was still young. I'm still young in my career. And I knew that Sun Life was a safe place and an amazing company, because many of people that I've worked with over the years did move to Sun Life, and I knew it had great leadership. So in November 2018, I did move over there. I do continue to learn every day. I have a team of 30 plus people across the globe that are doing fantastic things to change the world in this space. I can honestly say that I love my job. There's never a dull moment. I'm the type of person that bores easily, so this job is definitely far from boring. The role continues to evolve. We have a lot of fun, and it's kind of bittersweet. The challenging part of the job is that we're consistently having to keep up with new technology. So that's really hard in our career to keep up, but at the same time, make sure that, you know, you're looking after the current systems, and you're trying to accelerate and automate any manual legacy processes that exist. So if you do not like change, cybersecurity is not the role for you. It is a small industry. We do have a shortage of talent. We tend to hire from each other, but we at Sun Life, along with other FIs, have joined forces with Toronto Finance International. We have a working group, and we're working with our industry peers to collaborate on various initiatives, and building an industry talent strategy is one of them. So together we help build Seneca's cyber threat management program, and we launched that this year. Sun Life is also a proud sponsor of Ontario Tech Cyber Girl program, and that's targeted for girls between the ages of 12 to 14. We've run camps and workshops to help educate the girls and get them excited to pursue careers in STEM and cyber. We definitely have a shortage of women in STEM, so we need to keep working together to recruit girls and women in this space. Information security at Sun Life does consist of approximately 100 members across Canada, Ireland, Asia, and the US. We have 8 areas of operations, from identity and access management to digital security and threat management. We have security governance. We do have a special culture here. And when you are pursuing what you want to do and you're looking at roles, keep us in mind. There's great opportunities here. And the one thing that I'm going to leave you with is, although your education is extremely important and it's an amazing asset, it's not only what you learn on paper that matters, though. So keep that in mind. I'll leave you with technical and soft skills such as communication, accountability, and leadership make you great candidates to work in cybersecurity or in any other space. So thank you very much, and back to you, Carla.
Thank you so much, Anne. Definitely, you're working in a hot, new, cool field in cybersecurity. That was an interesting comment about how you said that. I might reverse it. If you like change, cybersecurity is the world for you. And as Anne mentioned, there's definitely opportunities there. So something, if you're not sure and you come from marketing and you like policing, it might be for you. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, and next up on our list today is Julian Phipps. Julian is responsible for all activities that generate revenue at Alt5. I'm certain Julian will tell you more about Alt5, but briefly, it's a fintech that supports customers in buying, selling, and trading top 10 digital currencies. In other words, he works in cryptocurrency. Cool, right? But I wonder where Julian started out. Let's launch the next poll to see what you think. Was it marketing and commerce, finance, mathematics and statistics, business administration, or political science? And the votes are coming in. Many are thinking math and statistics or finance. All right, let's end our poll and share the results. So it looks like most of you think that Julian took his undergraduate degree in finance. Let's ask Julian if our attendees are right. I'm going to stop share and pass it over to you, Julian.
Great, thanks, Carla. And thanks to the whole Aspire and TFI team for putting this great event together online. Well, a lot of you had guessed finance, and while numbers, I do like numbers, my background started off in marketing. So I was at BCIT, probably more about 20 years ago now, and basically took marketing communications there, did my associate's degree there, and afterwards was able to complete a bachelor's degree at Royal Roads University in Victoria, all out on the West Coast in BC. So yeah, my career was started off, funny enough, in banking. So I had a long career of about 10 years with the credit union system out in Vancouver, with a credit union called Van City, which is the largest credit union, I believe, still in Canada. And I had many roles and different, steps along the way while I was at Van City. And this included, frontline teller, early days doing transactions for retail customers that came in, loans, as well as doing some of the back office work. So those were really, great foundations. And in general, I would say, the industry of finance and banking is a great foundation for any role that you would actually take later on in life, or, if you're going into different industries and fields. So this has served me very well throughout my career. Afterwards, I was able to have a startup where we pioneered some online currency exchange. This was run from 2008 to 2010. And It was a very exciting time. It was also another crisis at that time. If some of you remember, there was the mortgage meltdown. So now we find ourselves in a similar type of economy. But out of that, the great thing is there is so much opportunity that comes out of these times, right? And this is something that, you know, I would love to share with you folks at this time, is that some of the greatest companies are born out of these times of hardship, because there's so much opportunity out there. Now, when you think about financial services, did I think I would end up having a career in financial industry? Not necessarily. I thought that was my starting point, but the more and more I got to understand, you know, the variations of different positions and companies in the financial space, it just kept pulling me back in. So after we successfully sold our startup, I was able to run our city's Chamber of Commerce, and as President Executive Director there, worked with numerous small to medium-sized businesses, gained valuable insight on how we could help, you know, local community businesses. And again, in a time like today, it's great to support local businesses. And really, I believe that my current role right now, I wouldn't be able to have the diversity of thought and the ability to be flexible and creative and problem solving, as well as working with other companies that want to do innovative and disruptive, I guess, solutions, create these types of solutions, if I didn't have all these stops along the way. So I think, as some of our speakers mentioned earlier, it's very important, I think, to build your foundation for one. Be flexible along the path that you want to take, because not everybody's path is linear, but it is important to actually, you know, be flexible in the way that you plan for it, know what's important to you, and really to pursue that happiness, what makes you happy. So those are some of the takeaways that I would say. But I believe what's new and innovative, and obviously the cybersecurity industry, or cybersecurity, I did make a quick stop in fraud prevention online, but in cryptocurrency, in the digital asset space where I am now, it is very interesting to see that we can actually leverage some of the latest blockchain technology and apply it to new ways of creating capital for businesses. I think this is going to be something very exciting, even post this economic, or during this economic downturn, because a lot of companies are going to need new ways to leverage their assets and unlock some of this potential liquidity and funding that they could use to grow their businesses, especially in this difficult time. So we, as a digital asset company, are not only looking at exchanging and running an exchange that exchanges the top 10 cryptocurrencies right now, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on, but we're also looking at ways to create new and interesting solutions for companies to leverage blockchain and lend to themselves, instead of sometimes, you know, if they're not able to receive financing from the finance sector, then they may want to look at new ways to actually lend from their own assets. And that's what we're going to help them do. So yeah, there's three takeaways that I would say, you know, from my experience and the wealth of different mentors that I had along the way. It would be, one, having a path in your career, knowing what you want to do or what interests you, but being flexible along the way. Number two is really having a job that's stimulating, where you are learning something new every day. And that's really a great takeaway for what I've you know, always tried to ensure in my career, and as well as ensuring that you're pursuing happiness along the way. So really remembering that work-life balance, and also ensuring that you're even keeping your family members in mind. You know, especially now, I think it's a great time in the world right now. If you look at the bright side of things, is that we have the opportunity to be at home with our family, or most of us do, and spend that important time connecting with people and realizing that we are social beings, and that happiness counts. So with that, I'll say thanks for everybody who joined, and turn it back to Carla.
Thank you, Julian. We are a few minutes ahead of schedule. I wondered if you might be able to tell us a little more about that first job that you had in finance right out of school.
Yeah, sure. So I started off with Van City, you know, Credit Union, and like at the time, for myself, I said, what am I going to do? Okay, let's have a look here. What's great? What is stable? What's going to be around for a while? And I said, you know what? Finance and banking is really, for me, was a great job, fantastic in equitable pay and great benefits. And it was a job that I really had the opportunity to hone in on all of the great life skills. I think that really helped as well. You not only had the opportunity to learn about money and how it worked, you had the opportunity to, progress and move up relatively quickly depending on the organization and have touch points into different departments. So, whether it was frontline, a frontline representative, doing different types of loan or financial product underwriting, and even handling some of the bank's liquidity and into marketing. I had touch points into 5 key areas of the banking system that was really helpful throughout my different positions in various companies. Not only that, later on in my career, I was able to sell technology and financial products that were also gateways to travel. So you could travel, and I helped grow companies that where we sold technology solutions to other credit unions and financial institutions that needed the systems in place in their own institutions. So when in these particular roles, it took me to Europe, it took me to UK and Ireland, and so this was a fantastic experience as well. And I guess most recently, even with Alt 5 Sigma, this has been an excellent opportunity for me to really get on the fundraising side of the business. So how do we raise capital? How do we connect with potential investors and VCs as well as angels and so on? And most recently, we've been in the process of going public and filing for an IPO on the NASDAQ. So all of these different life lessons have accumulated, I guess, to this opportunity. And hopefully we were able to pull through these tough times and actually get through to being listed publicly.
Thanks, Julian. Yeah, I echo that. We're in an interesting time right now, but as you mentioned, there's also opportunity that can come out of all of this. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move on to our 5th and final speaker. So next up, we have Katie Ferreter. Katie is an Irish expat living in the busy bustle of Toronto. She moved to Canada 5 years ago and has worked with BMO Financial Group since October 2014. Her latest role at BMO is as the Senior Manager of Technology Research and Innovation that sees her seeking out knowledge of all things fintech to bring the emerging landscape into BMO technology. Let's launch our last poll. In what field do you think Katie completed her undergraduate degree? Digital marketing, information technology security, philosophy and English, technology management, or computing and business? She's working in technology research, and everyone's trying to figure this out. All right. We've closed our poll, and it's a close one, but it looks like most people think she studied computing and business in her undergraduate degree. Let's have Katie reveal if you're all correct. I'm going to pass it over to you now, Katie. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Carla, and thanks to Aspire and TFI for having me here today. It's really amazing to be able to connect virtually with everyone. I, like Anne, am a very social person, and I'm missing some of this social interaction, and this is almost as good. So I studied in Ireland, and I did my undergraduate in English literature and philosophy. Then I went on to do a Master's of Science in Marketing, Consumption and Society. And so maybe not the typical background for banking or technology. But I guess I'm often asked maybe if there are things that have stuck with me or are still relevant from my education. And I think there's two that I want to share. So the first being critical thinking. I think the ability to solve problems and think critically is something that's super important, and it stood to me to this day, but especially in this role, it allows me to weigh up emerging technology from a slightly different lens than the traditional technical one. And the second is communication. So both written and verbal. We had to do presentation after presentation after presentation in my master's, and I used to hate them, but they stand to you. And written, you know, essay in English Lit is kind of the way that you submit work. And what I'd say again is that it's been important in every role, but in this one specifically, I need to be able to articulate technology and how it works to people with varying levels of technical background and experience, as well as various levels of the organization. Given my background, I really did not think that I would end up in the financial institution space. My job in Ireland before I moved here was a marketing coordinator for a non-for-profit, the Chamber of Commerce in Ireland. And so to me, banking was a space where you would go if you had a finance degree, or technology was a space you would go if you had engineering or computer science. But I think my education has stood to me, and the fact that I didn't specialize in something has offered me the opportunity to try multiple roles within BMO. So in the last 5 years, I've worked in the capital markets operations space. I moved through to technology project delivery as a business analyst, and now I'm here as a research and innovation manager. Fun fact I did find out quite recently is that 2 of the founding fathers of BMO studied philosophy in their education. And so perhaps it's not so different or interesting after all. So my current role, I am in technology research and innovation, and really what that means is that I'm responsible for evaluating and exploring emerging tech capabilities and finding their applicability, if there is one, for BMO. My path into this role was a rather organic one. I've always been quite curious, and inefficiency and bad processes drive me crazy. So in my project delivery role, I had set up a committee to help things to run better and faster in terms of both the technology we delivered as well as how we delivered it. And so what grew from that was this role, and now a team that I have working with me to do this research and innovation. We report into the chief architect of the bank, which is just so cool because the chief architect has responsibility over the current and target architecture for technology in the whole enterprise. So that means we get to work with capital markets, wealth management, personal and business banking, corporate areas like HR and finance. So I think my role is pretty innovative, and not just because the title says so. My team and I get to do internal research and external collaborations. So we work with startups, we work with research institutions and universities, and government bodies. I like getting to work with the broad variety of individuals that I do, both internally when we're trying to transfer knowledge of the emerging capability, as well as the people externally. It doesn't always work, but when it does, it's great to find the synergy between emerging capabilities and a banking application or a use case or problem. So something that we're focused on right now that I think is quite interesting is Internet of Things, or IoT. And so basically as a concept, it's that you're connected to the internet and that devices are connected to each other. So you can think of this in a very simple example, like our ATMs. Our ATMs don't necessarily all talk to each other, and nor are they feeding back data into one space. And so there are so many things we could do to better understand our customers' needs there. You could take it a step further in something that's a bit more out there and think about sensors and branches. A branch could then hypothetically know that it's me, Katie, when I walk in. It could provide me and augment my experience in real time based on my previous transactions. But to do all of that, I need those devices to be connected. And part of that ends up being, do we have the right network capabilities to do this? And so while we're exploring the use cases for IoT, we're also in different 5G labs in Canada and the US, and we're trying out 5G as the next generation of network. It's supposed to be faster, have lower latency, and what we're finding is you need to couple technologies together in order to better and best utilize them. I think I want to just leave you guys with some career advice or some things that have worked for me through my last 5 years in Canada. I think you can't underestimate the importance of networking. But by networking, I don't mean that you just go and try find a job. Talk to people about their jobs, what they do, what they love about them, and their career paths or how they got to where they're at. It will give you an idea of the broad range of possibilities and how there really is no cookie cutter fit for many of the financial institution roles in Canada. And I also think it'll allow you to see that there's probably roles out there that you haven't yet considered that you might want to do. It's a-okay if you don't know what your dream job is or what your career aspirations are. I did not know. I found myself here and I absolutely love my job. So looking forward to Q&A, and I'll hand it back to Carla.
Thank you so much, Katie. That was a really interesting career journey, and I love the fact that you started out in a very non-traditional field to end up in financial services. Okay, we have a good solid 15, maybe 20 minutes to be able to answer some questions. I've already seen a few questions coming in, so I'm very pleased with that. And continue to submit more. This is indeed our Q&A section. So I'm actually going to leave on the screen I'm not going to share our slide because I found that what's really fantastic is being able to see everyone's face full screen. And so instead, I'm just going to open the floor up to answer some questions. So there's one that's very timely that I thought I would ask first, and it's actually for all of our panelists. The question is, and so panelists, feel free to jump in if you have an answer. Has securing an IT position in the financial services sector become harder because of COVID-19? I'm going to graduate in August, and I'm worried about not having as many opportunities as new IT grads might normally have. Is there anyone that would like to jump in and answer today?
I can jump in. It's Anne here. So I think that there may be some projects that will be on hold just because the world is in a financial crisis and hiring may slow down. However, there is always movement in the industry. And when I talk about cybersecurity, it is evolving so fast. And for us to keep up and make sure we're protecting the organization and keeping up the bad guys, we're consistently needing to hire people, and we're bringing in new technology to support those technologies. So I do not think there may be a little bit of a slowdown, but I do think that there will be a lot of hiring opportunities.
Anyone else who'd like to build on Anne's thoughts? Is it the same at other institutions?
Hi, it's Allison here. At RBC, we are committed to continue to hire. As us and a lot of the other financial institutions are doing even better compared to our global peers, we still need lots of great people in tech and in finance. So the way you are hired might be a little bit different in that you will probably have a conference call or a phone call with folks, but we've already started onboarding folks to new jobs at RBC over the past couple of weeks in a remote manner. And I think it's going to be kind of a new normal.
Very good. Anyone else want to chime in? Okay, I'm going to ask my next question, which says, I'm a math major, and I'm wondering, for someone like me who does not have any work experience yet, what sort of first jobs did you guys do that helped you get to where you are today? And I know you answered a little bit of this, but particularly if you're a math major, what kind of suggestions might you have? It's open to all.
I'm happy to jump in here. I think it's probably about being flexible about the role, but maybe being more particular about the organization.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my first role was operations coordinator at BMO. It's not necessarily what I thought I might do, and it definitely wasn't what I wanted to do long term. But I was very aware that BMO as an organization was a wonderful place to work and therefore may have other opportunities in the future. And so what I would say is, if you don't have work experience yet, maybe consider an entry-level position or a slightly different type of position than the one you might want further down the line.
Thank you, Katie. I think that's a great answer.
I can add on to that a bit as well. So as I mentioned, I'm part of the Data Science and Analytics Associate Program. And a friend of mine who's also in the program came from a pure math background, pure math undergrad. And I know that the banks have a vested interest in hiring STEM and hiring from a diversity of fields, including pure mathematics. You might just have to be a little bit flexible about applying that math to a technology, right? There's not a lot of positions where you'll just get paid to do math. You usually have to apply it in the context of something like data science. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Okay, this question comes in for Allison. You mentioned you wished you had done a systems design degree. In the end, were you able to get the skills you would have learned from that degree in either of the degrees you do have or in your work experience?
I think it's a good question. And whether it's strategy, marketing, even in HR, I think thinking about systems and how processes and everything goes together is something that I've maybe learned on the job. And then there are some courses within my business degree, things like managerial accounting. You probably don't think as sort of a systems engineering type skill set, but figuring out sort of clues within the books and how different systems work was something that we learned within that course. So I guess really why I wish I'd done more systems engineering was to get more of the technical and to get a foundation in coding prior to getting the business experience.
Thank you very much, Allison. Okay, the next one coming in is actually for all students, or for all of our panelists. And I know, Katie, this one might be for you, but it's really around what advice do you have for art students? And I know also you too, Allison, work in HR. Are there jobs in financial services for art students?
Well, prime example A, yes, there is. I think arts gets a bad name and reputation for itself as a degree, but really do try to look to pull out the things that you have learned in your degree and you can apply holistically that are not necessarily specific to the subject. You know, I don't think Allison wants to hear me, if she's interviewing, tell her all the great philosophers I studied. But what she might want to know is that I feel I have got good communication skills now, or I'm able to problem solve because I've done X, Y, and Z. And so try to pull those skills that you have and you know, I think should be okay.
Yeah, and there's actually a sort of resurgence in arts backgrounds within tech. Some jobs that we're seeing that are brand new are things like digital ethics or data ethics. And so having the philosophy degree, sociology, anthropology degree are all good backgrounds for that type of job, as well as design thinking is really when you're really trying to empathize with your user and figure out what they need. A lot of arts programs require you to put yourself in the shoes of someone else. If you're taking literature, you're thinking about what the author was thinking about or what the characters are thinking about. So we really are seeing a resurgence in arts degrees, and some of the big tech companies have actually removed their requirements for even just degrees, but degrees in engineering or tech or science or math.
Thank you, ladies. Anyone else want to answer that question around what arts students, what jobs are available to them?
Yeah, I was going to mention a little bit as well, Carla, and I was just going to say, touching on some of the points already mentioned, UX, UI design, being able to leverage some of the, art side of design aspects, but also understanding the customer journey. So, putting yourselves again in the mind of the customer and really, being able to create the experience that is meaningful and effective for the business that you're in. Also, obviously, data science it also touches on those aspects as well. So understanding, for example, fraud prevention, understanding, getting the insight of, maybe even the criminal mind, in that aspect, and really, trying to figure out what different groups are doing in terms of attacking a business, or, there are many different sort of philosophical or even introspective sides to this question that would be more conducive to perhaps arts.
Thank you. This is another question for all of you. So we have one student and maybe more on the call who's asking, how can a second degree student get past the age-related bias in the job market? Any takers on that one?
I could jump in on this one as well.
Sure.
I feel that this is something that, just based on the physical appearance or a youthful look, this has been something that in my career I've had, to deal with as well. But I think that what really helps you set you apart if you have this question is really having a good foundation, having a knowledge, and demonstrating that at the appropriate time. If your experience, or if you can build that experience and know when to, I guess, demonstrate that accordingly, that will garner you a lot more respect amongst your peers.
Thank you. All right, next up I have a question for Andrew. This student says, hey, I'm interested in being a data scientist. Would you recommend that I pursue a postgraduate certificate or a master's degree to enhance my data analysis skills and to be a more attractive candidate? And I'm assuming that data science wasn't sort of their first degree.
Right, I was going to say, I think it depends a little bit on what your undergraduate degree is in this case, right? If you come from a computer science or like a software engineering background, then I think most companies will recognize you have a lot of the foundational attributes and skills associated with data science. But maybe if you come from like a business background, like I did, I think it can be very beneficial to do a master's program. And that's part of the reason that I did my master's program. Is even in my undergraduate, I felt like I had, a good grasp of the tech skills, but my degree didn't necessarily reflect that, right? At the end of the day, my degree was just a HBA, business administration. So it can certainly help you get your foot in the door, for sure.
Thank you. And one more question for you while you're big on our screen. What made you switch from software engineering to finance when you were in school?
Yeah, so I didn't go into the full detail of the story. Part of that is it's how the business program at the school is structured. So I did my undergraduate degree at Western. The business school they have there is the Ivy Business School, and that's how they actually structure the business program. In your first 2 years, you do any other concurrent degree. It could be anything. In my case, it was engineering. And then in third year is when you start the business degree. So I had that planned actually from the beginning. One thing you can do with that is then take a fifth year to get a dual degree, and I opted instead to do a master's. So yeah, that's sort of just a consequence of the school structure.
Okay. This one is for all of our panelists, and it says, in many entry-level roles I've been seeing, they put a requirement for 2 to 3 years of experience. How can we, so the question is, how do we get this if we're new grads? I see a lot of smiles. Anyone want to jump in and approach this one?
Well, a lot of times those job postings are pre-filled, and we don't always follow that path at all. It could be in there, but don't be afraid to apply for those positions just because it does say 2 to 3 years. I know I have summer students that come in all the time that do co-op terms, and those are candidates that we consider if they do well in their co-op. those are usually the ones that we're targeting to hire in those entry level positions. So I would not be afraid to apply for a job because of it. Don't let it discourage you. Just keep going, because you never know what door will open.
Thanks. Anyone else want to address that question? Okay, here's another one for all. So how important is it for STEM students to have a finance background to break into data science or other tech roles in the financial services industry?
I would say probably not important at all to begin with, at least, because whether you go into the financial services or a completely different industry, you'll be learning that industry regardless. And so you've got an advantage already that you know the tech or the data science, depending on what it is that you've studied. So the finance will come, like that knowledge will come. Part of it is, I think, time spent on the job, you know, working with colleagues and on different projects. Bit by bit you build it, but I don't think the expectation is that you have it coming straight out of your education.
Thanks, Katie. Anne, did you want to jump in there? I know your mute's off, or are you good?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Another one for Andrew says, so this student is particularly interested in machine learning job opportunities. And so the question is, what specific data analytics skills should they focus on developing to get into that field?
Right. I would definitely say at the core, the most common skills you're going to need are Python and SQL. Less and less, I would say, most institutions are moving away from SAS. Like I know the banks are moving away from SAS. They still have it. You know, you can substitute a lot of the time for Python, but especially if you want to try and do more than just the data science, Python's really helpful for that. So I would say those are the two kind of biggest foundational technical skills. And then maybe what I would add on top of that is that I think a lot of people in data science undervalue the rest of it, which is when you do a data science project, you have to communicate really well with business partners. And that goes a really long way. And that can be a huge value add on any team that you're in.
Thank you. Okay, we have one last question. This one actually, maybe I can squeeze in two. This one's for Julian, which is literally, what skills do you need to get started in the cryptocurrency field?
Yeah, it's actually varied quite a bit. There's no particular skill, depending on the area that you want to work in. If you're more of a programmer, or if you are interested in, you know, building the solutions, then obviously a computer programming background would be ideal. If you have some engineering, I guess, you know, aspects as well, that might help in terms of, you know, understanding systems. But also, I would say on the flip side, there are a need for sales, you know, backgrounds. There are a need for marketing, of course, to grow the companies, and also generally operations. If you've got a business background, you can apply that to the operational side. So it varies quite a bit.
Thank you. Okay, last question before I need to wrap up. And it came originally from an international student who had studied, he keeps seeing entry-level jobs in business that require technical skills. And the question is, where do you suggest I get those technical skills that would help me kickstart my career in financial services?
So I know that Microsoft Azure and Amazon AWS offer a lot of free training online, and this could give you a good introduction into cloud and some of the services and software you can use as part of that. For example, they've got different services that will allow you to learn to build a chatbot, or to learn to do some very basic like data science and machine learning. And you can do it for free. So it could be a good place to start.
Hey, Carla, we can't hear you.
I'm so sorry. Hello, you can hear me now, I hope. So yeah, I wanted to say a huge thank you to all of our speakers today. You were exceptional. I loved hearing about your career journeys. I think what I took away from all of this was that you often didn't end out where you started, and you're still probably growing and going to build even more exciting careers. So thank you. I also heard sort of 3 key points that you said: take risks, to build your network, and to be flexible. So thank you for sharing those ideas. Before we leave, I want to make sure everyone continues to stay connected with Aspire. So thank you, all of our attendees, for coming. If you haven't already signed up to be part of our network, I encourage you to go to aspirefs.ca and to sign up. That's where you can stay abreast of any other events that we're holding. We post resources and tools to help you kickstart your career, so please check it out. And we encourage you to share your key messages and your thoughts from today across our social media channels and to follow. So we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our handle is typically AspireWill, so please stay connected and chat with us. I want to thank everyone again, especially our speakers, for coming out tonight. I apologize if we didn't get to all of your questions, but we'll try to answer some of them after through our various social media channels. And I wish you a safe and lovely evening. Thank you.